Welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome to First Parish, Unitarian Universalists of Arlington.
We choose.
We choose.
We choose to be
A liberal religious community.
Welcoming.
Welcoming to all.
We encourage each other
on our spiritual journeys.
Support one another
through the changes in our lives.
And challenge the excesses
and injustices of our time.
Called to love.
To love.
To love.
And upheld by joy.
We live our faith.
Spirit of enduring life, Spirit of steadfast love, be with us now. Be in our breath, so that we might know in our bones a love that holds us. A love that stays with us. A love that has the power to heal and transform. A love in our bones that helps us to find joy, even in bleak times. The joy of 60-degree weather, the joy of a loved one thriving and finding safety, the joy of becoming ourselves more thoroughly, the joy of kitchen smells and laughter in the preparation, the joy of early crocuses, may this joy carry us through hard times. Times of disconnection and worry, times of grief when we miss someone so fiercely. This has been another week of violence and horrific headlines, of lives lost. We pray for the people of Iran, for innocents caught in the crossfire of war. We pray for our own vulnerable service members, those caught in webs of destruction and greed. Spirit of life, many of us are overwhelmed, unsure of where to turn, unsure of what is steady enough to hold us. Help us to anchor ourselves to holy ground, a holy mountain, a place of love. As we think of those across the globe caught in areas of conflict, may our commitment to peace begin with us. Right here, right now, a quiet, unyielding power in our breath. A peace that radiates from us to our neighbors, to strangers, that radiates across the globe. Concentric circles of compassion and collective liberation. Spirit of life, this peace is in our breath, in our bones. Help us to find it, to hold it, to share it. Let us settle into 2 minutes of silence.
Hello. My name is Sarah Quick. I use she, her pronouns, and I'd like to thank the Worship Associates for asking me to speak today. Now that we are firmly in March, I am done with a tumultuous yearly period where I find myself reflecting on my father more than average. His birthday is January 29th. 4 years ago, he passed away on Christmas Day 2021. He was diagnosed in 2019 with frontal temporal dementia prior to Bruce Willis bringing that disease to the public eye. I was not with him when he died, spending my first Christmas with my in-laws for the first time. I struggle with how to convey the entirety of my father to people who did not meet him before his sickness or after. I started a journal this year where I recount the events of my day as if I'm speaking to my dad. This journaling has led me to reflect on the ways I carry him with me still. My father loved to sing and play multiple instruments. His love of music led him to bribing me to join the middle school band, a choice that brought me years of joy and many friends. Music unites us. A lesson proved to me multiple times over, every time I moved somewhere new and joined a choir, making lifelong friends in the process. In my journal, I notate what song has been stuck in my head that day. Routinely in January, my journal lists songs by John Denver, Crosby, Stills and Nash, and Amy Winehouse, as I try to regain the feeling of sitting in my dad's truck on road trips. My father loved to tell stories. I would call them more stand-up bits. Others would charitably call them tall tales. He loved to tell self-deprecating tales to anyone who would listen. He would work these bits over and over, telling them multiple times to different audiences: PTA, church, our neighbors, his co-workers, until he figured out how to maximize the laughs. Any small hiccup in his day could get spun into a 3-minute monologue to get an extra serving of goulash at the church potluck. Through his stories, I learned how to tell my own, be it in front of 2 or 200 people. My dad and I spoke on the phone every day when I was in college, using each other as sounding boards for our new stories as we fleshed them out. One of my bigger and better stories was never heard by my father, and it goes like this. Christmas Day, 2021. My dad had been doing bad. His death was not a surprise. My mom called me early Christmas morning to warn me that it was probably that day. I needed something, anything to distract me, so I put on an inoffensive movie, similar to picking a palatable flavor of Gatorade for surgery prep. The film, National Treasure. For 45 minutes, I watched Nicolas Cage commit multiple crimes against history and national landmarks in a race against Sean Bean. Then, my phone rang, and my mother confirmed what I already knew. After speaking with her, I bolted to my in-laws' basement, squeezing myself, the laptop airing National Treasure, and a pillow in between Halloween decorations and old board games. In my grief and the fetal position, I found myself thinking about one thing. This was objectively funny. And I couldn't even tell my dad, my favorite audience. I don't know where my father is now. He grew up a preacher's kid in the United Church of Christ, Christian denomination, and found great comfort and joy in it. I grew up in the same denomination, in a very, very small congregation I considered my church family. My father stressed the importance and community that can be found in church family to my brother and I constantly, eventually leading me to First Parish's doors years later. Today, I don't believe in God anymore, necessarily. When you take away the proper nouns, the core of what I was taught growing up in a UCC church still holds true for me. We are all children of earth, and love and curiosity is what must guide us. Without curiosity, we will not grow, and without love, we will not learn. I do believe in my father, lowercase father. A loved one attending AA described that while many of the 12 traditions of the group feature the word God, the second tradition describes believing in a higher power. My dad was 6 feet tall. Instead of addressing an omnipotent, omniscient entity, I choose to speak with my dad. I ask him for snow days and winning Powerball numbers. I tell him I love him and I miss him and I'm pissed at him for leaving. I ask him to help me make it through this Credo without crying. Many people, including my partner, never knew my dad before his illness. But I believe they know a lot about who he was by what I believe and practice today. I believe my father wanted to pass on 3 things to his children: his love of music, his storytelling, and his Christian faith. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. If you'll now join me, you may remain seated in Song 33 in the songbook, Give Light. We are only going to be singing verse 1.
Good morning. Hello. I'm Jim Hall. I apologize for having to give this Credo sitting down, but leg and back problems make it difficult for me to to stand for even more than a brief period of time. So I hope this comes across well. I've heard Betty Davis has said that getting old is not for sissies, and I can confirm that. So, this, I believe, we have a duty to lead. On the website of our Unitarian Universalists Association is a webpage that declares that in our denomination, we welcome people with many beliefs. It goes on to list in alphabetical order some of the many wisdom traditions believed in by people who are also UUs: atheist and agnostic, Buddhist, Christian, earth-centered, Hindu, humanist, Jewish, and Muslim. The next section of the webpage asks the obvious question that then comes to mind. Given all these different beliefs, what unites us? And the answer provided is, we are united in our broad and inclusive outlook and in our values as expressed in our 7 principles. With a link to the page setting forth our long-standing 7 principles. They are printed in our hymnal on the 5th page in. I use an abbreviated statement of the principles as my elevator speech when I speak to others about our faith, adding a recently proposed 8th principle, which has now become part of our core values: building a diverse, multiracial, beloved community where all feel welcome and all can thrive. It's our commonly held real-world human rights values that make us UUs. It was the 7 principles that caused me to become a UU in 1985. I grew up in a Methodist family, but once I went off to college, I stopped attending any church. I would have resisted being classified in any wisdom tradition, although I would have come closest to being a humanist. No talk about God for me. But come 1985, and 3 young children, and I'm sure not unlike many of you, we started thinking about Sunday school for the kids. We talked to a neighbor, and she said to us words we UUs hate to hear. Why don't you try the Unitarian Universalist Church? You can believe whatever you want to there. So in the summer of 1985, I decided to try out this church. By a very fortuitous coincidence, that year's General Assembly had just adopted the 7 principles, and they were being articulately discussed at the service I attended. By the end of that service, I said to myself, wow, these principles express and advocate secular human rights values. This is my church. These are my people. I was hooked and have been coming ever since. Of course, our UUA emphasizes on its website that ours is an action-oriented community. We work for social justice. We walk our talk. It's how we make our faith real. And indeed, since the founding of our Unitarian Universalist denominations in the early 1800s, we UUs have fought with others for the abolition of slavery, women's suffrage, civil rights, equal rights, voting rights, gay rights, reproductive rights, humane treatment of the mentally ill, protection of children and animals, and so much more, as I only very partially tried to document in an email I sent out to our First Parish list Friday evening, noting just a few of the multitude of Unitarian Universalists who have helped bend the arc of the moral universe toward justice. We UUs have always been in the forefront of fighting for and furthering human rights. We know that securing human rights for all of us is the way to achieve our goal of a world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. In our modern times, tremendous progress has been made in gaining ever-expanding human rights for more and more people around the globe. But needless to say, there is still a daunting amount of the bending of that moral arc to be done. And now we UUs face a new and urgent imperative to act, to lead on a matter where, with the development of weapons of mass destruction, the very existence of life on Earth is in jeopardy. The Trump administration's shorthand statement of its foreign policy is peace through strength, meaning, of course, through military strength. But military might will not bring us peace. At best, it will bring us an unending need to constantly increase and modernize our military capabilities to try to stay ahead of what will certainly be our rival powers' determined efforts to not fall behind our strength. The result can only be fearful nations devoting massive resources to making their military machines ever more lethal, dangerous, and frightening. The militarists and authoritarians of the world offer us a bleak and foreboding future, if any future at all. Unitarian Universalists offer to our global human family a free, just, peaceful, and prosperous future. We offer peace through human rights for all. We must loudly, resoundingly proclaim our hopeful and optimistic message. Achieving the beloved community will require the tireless efforts of all social justice activists and people of goodwill. we can realize the age-old dream that we will beat our swords into plowshares. Our challenge is great, but the stakes are greater. Our UU vision, our UU leadership are needed now more than ever. Thank you.
Hello. My name's Annette Sawyer, and my pronouns are she, her. I was born a good Methodist girl. I went to church in a very, very small country rural town in Maine with my grandmother. I attended Ladies' Aid events, and I appreciated the strength in a community. Be good, do good through our personal relationship with God. When I was 13 years old, I was such a good Methodist girl that during a 24-hour prayer vigil, they trusted the church and the continuity of prayer to my 13-year-old self and my sister, who was 9. I lived in a grim, violent world, and I thought that was my opportunity to have a personal channel to my God. So I got down on my knees and I prayed fervently for 20 minutes. When I got up, I knew at the bottom of my heart that I was alone. And so for 20 years, I dug myself out of my community. I had a life, but I had a life that was hopeless, and I fell into alcoholism and drug abuse. 20 years of that, at the age of 33, I found myself in that 12-step program that Sarah mentioned, struggling with the first 3 steps around a higher power. Because I fundamentally knew there was no God. Because something or someone would have happened to help me get out of that situation. But through my recovery, I began to have faith in the people around me. And little by little, I started and felt the brief flicker of my higher power, which is hope. Hope for me is a belief that the people in front of me are part of my world and not dangerous, and that I myself have capacities that can be a good, do good, be good, that old Methodist refrain. Out of that hope, 4 years into my recovery, I dared to have a child that turned into the greatest miracle in my life. I had faith that I could be an imperfect but loving mother, and she was the miracle. I had hope that we could join this community when she was 3 and find a place where we could belong, and that my own internalized homophobia needed a place like this to think that we could be just a family. And you gave that to us. It was, again, a miracle born out of hope and faith. And then 18 years ago, I began a journey that was the beginning of me losing my sight. I have something that takes away the middle of my retinas. So slowly but surely, the faith in myself, the hope for myself, began to erode. I first could no longer drive a car. Then I couldn't read normal text. Then I couldn't read enlarged text. Then no matter the technology that was provided me, I could not decode fast enough to keep up with my job. And I have to tell you, I was enormously vain about how quickly I could read. And so I began to lose how I self-define myself. And in this faith community for me, I no longer could sing out of the hymnal because I can't read the lyrics. I spent a couple of years not picking up my guitar and playing with others because I had no faith or hope that my memory would support me. And honestly, I hit the wall. I stopped coming here because I was embarrassed that I couldn't recognize who I was talking to. I stopped talking to my friends about it because I'd lost my sense of self. And then it was so bad. It felt like recovery all over again. And the first thing I needed to do was to have faith in you all and just show up and start talking about what was going on in my journey. Slowly but surely, I started to feel that faint breath of hope in my chest for myself again. I'm 72 years old now, and this is part of my aging story. And it was so tough when I lost myself and I lost hope and faith. Because for me, the way I live it out is that in this journey, believe it or not, while I can't literally see you, I do see you. I feel you. And I feel how I can be good and do good in this community, in my recovery community, and just sometimes walking down the street and being present for others. This has been my faith journey, and I am so grateful I've reconnected with my higher power, hope. And so thank you so much for being the community where I regained my hope. And I want to thank you again for the faith that you showed in me and in others, and the gift that you gave me and my daughter to be part of this community for over 30 years. I am so grateful to have a place where we do talk about faith. And as Jim said, we have a number of different ways to define who God is to us. Mine is hope, and it makes me be the best person I can be, which actually isn't that the essence of Unitarian Universalism?